Hi everybody, welcome to my little sewing corner. Today I'm gonna make a quick little video about how to do applique and what is applique and where do we do applique. So yeah, starting off, what is applique? Applique is basically, it's a technique for decorating fabric. We see it all over Amtgard, but you basically are taking pieces of fabric in one color, cutting them out, layering them on top of another piece of fabric, and then stitching them down to create some sort of design, a pattern, or an image. You can applique tunics, you can applique shield covers, belt favors, hoods, basically any type of garb that you want, as long as you can imagine a design that you want to put on it, you can applique it down. So I'll show a few examples. Let's start with this guy actually. So this is a tunic that actually has some of the first applique that I ever did. I think I did this back in like 2017 or so. And the quality reflects that. So you can see there's actually a few areas where I missed the fabric that I was trying to stitch down, and the zigzags just don't quite catch it. So those parts have started to fray, but it's yeah, it's still some cute little applique. Looking at some nicer quality stuff, we have this example. This was done by Kite out of the Kingdom of Polaris, who he's a rock star at applique. He taught me almost everything that I know. And if we go in, how close can I get with this little camera? But we can see how tidy these stitches are in comparison. So we've got a really nice, narrow, very even zigzag stitch around the edge of all of these curves. And the way that this one was constructed, we can actually see it's got 3 layers of fabric. So this black sun motif was stitched down onto this circle first, and then this was stitched down onto the main fabric, just as one big circle around the edge. So you can see the little zigzag stitches around the edge of that as well. You can applique letters. I am a big fan of appliquing letters. So yeah, contrasting fabric, ironed down onto the main fabric with that adhesive, and then just zigzag all around the edges. I'll try to show some tricks for getting nice clean corners like this on your applique. You're also not limited with the number of colors or types of fabric that you do. So this is another example done by Kite that really showcases just how much fun you can have with the designs and the layering and the stitching. So we've got like 3 different colors going on. We've got a bunch of little kite motifs around here. We've got a funky zigzaggy wayfinder eye, so it shows off some of the zigzags that you can get going on with applique. Yeah, sky's the limit. Have fun. All right, so next up is what materials do you actually need to be able to work on an applique project? We're gonna start off with, this is the star of the show. So this is Heat and Bond. It's an iron-on adhesive, and this is the stuff that makes one piece of fabric stick to another. So I have seen other people have recommended another product called Wonder Under. I haven't personally used Wonder Under. This is the stuff that I was taught to applique with, and it's the stuff that I recommend. So it is the Heat and Bond Light, and I'll show how to use it later on in the video. You're also going to need a pen or pencil, something to draw out your design with. You're going to want a pair of scissors. You want some fabric. So I just have some scraps that I'm going to demo with today. Ideally, when you're picking your fabric, you want something that doesn't stretch. If you have stretch fabric, it's going to be stretching as you're trying to applique it, and it can warp the design a little bit. So if you do have fabric that has some stretch to it, you'll also want to add some embroidery stabilizer underneath, or some other sort of non-stretch material. And that's going to help a lot with keeping everything straight and tight. So this that I'm demoing with today is just a cotton, doesn't stretch. You'll want matching thread, ideally matching. If you want to be fancy, you can do contrast thread. You can have some fun with it. I'm not making the rules. You need an iron, and you also want a sewing machine, something that can do a zigzag stitch. All right, so the first step of applique is getting your design onto your applique paper, the iron-on adhesive. You can start with your design sketched out on a piece of scrap paper, actually. But because my design today is very simple, I'm just going to take a scrap of this stuff and I'm just going to draw the design directly onto here. So we're just going to go ahead and applique. Let's do a cute little heart. Good enough. Just a little guy. Something to keep in mind when you're doing this, whatever you draw onto your applique paper is actually going to be reversed when you put it onto your actual fabric. So if you're drawing letters, that would be a good use case for drawing it on scrap paper first, reversing it to transfer it onto the applique paper, and then when you actually go and put it onto your fabric, it's going to come out facing the right direction. But yeah, I'm just going to do this little heart, nice and simple. I'm going to use this as my fabric for the applique. And then once again, there's my design. You don't want to cut it out of your paper just yet. It's actually a lot easier to transfer it onto your fabric and then to cut it out. So that's what we're going to do now. And yeah, it's super easy. You just put it with the adhesive side down onto your fabric, take your iron's heated, and you just are going to press it into place. Now that it's ironed onto there, this is when it's going to be a lot easier to cut out. Because if you cut out the design first, then put it on, then you're basically having to cut out all your lines twice exactly. This way you can do it just once, just with the fabric and the paper at the same time. Important for this, you don't want to use your fabric scissors on this because this has paper and fabric. So use whatever your junky paper scissors are instead of your good fabric scissors. Once you've got your little design cut out of the paper, now is when you can go and just peel off the paper. And this part's garbage, the fabric part you want to keep. And the adhesive, the sticky bit, has actually transferred onto the fabric now. So this is what I'm going to use as my backing fabric. Pretty similar to what we did before. We're just going to iron it on to the main fabric now. Alright, and this is where we're at. So this is actually stuck onto the fabric, as you can see. I can like scratch a little bit. I could peel it off if I really wanted to, but it's stuck on there well enough that I can go now and stitch it down permanently. So over to the sewing machine for that. Alright, so at the sewing machine, what I usually like to do is I actually start with a test piece, because you're going to want to figure out exactly what you want your stitch width and stitch length to be set at. So you're going to be wanting to work with a zigzag stitch, and the stitch width is going to be somewhere in the buttonhole range, but where is going to depend on the type of thread, the type of fabric that you're using, how fine the details are on the piece. Stitch length, maybe let's start with like a 2.5 and see what we end up with. Okay, so yeah, stitch width, stitch length is set. I've got a contrasting thread in just so it's easier to see, and let's just see what that ends up. So that's what we get with those stitch settings. This is longer than I would like, and not quite as wide as I would like either. Especially when you're just starting, it's going to be a lot easier to go wider rather than narrower. That's going to let you catch more of your fabric. So we're going to make some adjustments and we're going to go again. So the second one is a lot closer to what I want to be working with. Especially what I like to do is I like to go over my pieces twice. So if I'm going over something twice, this is a great starting point to be working with. The second pass is going to fill in all of those little gaps that you do see. But yeah, this is good enough for me for now. I'm satisfied with that, so I can move to my main piece, that cute little heart. So the biggest thing to remember is just go slow. You can pause, you can lift up your pedal, you can rotate the piece around as much as you like. This isn't a speed challenge. We're not trying to rush through this. This is something where we can take our time and really make sure that all of the edges and stitches are nice. So needle goes in on the left. You want the outside edge of your stitch to be lined up with the outside edge of whichever piece. So if I'm doing a zigzag, it's going to go zigzag on the inside and then zigzag right at the edge. Inside, right at the edge, inside, right at the edge. So straight sections are pretty easy. You're just gonna go and do that zigzag in a nice straight line. Once we get to the curve, you want to be always holding your fabric really tightly as you go around those edges. Another trick is to be frequently lifting up your presser foot to reposition your piece. That's going to put less tension on your fabric and allow you to make a smoother curve. So yeah, you can do just a few stitches, rotate. So as I'm rotating, every time that I pick up the presser foot to reposition, I want to make sure that my foot is on the outer edge of the curve. So yeah, I pick it up and then just rotate it a little bit to get the next bit. But having the needle on the outer edge of the zigzag rather than the inner edge is going to help you keep a smoother curve. So we are now coming up to the corner of the heart. Wow, exciting. There's another trick that I'm going to show for doing corners. Maybe I can draw it on the screen afterwards, but basically what you're going to do is you're going to go right up to the corner, and then you're actually going to rotate the foot 45 degrees, not the full 90 degrees on the corner. You're going to do a couple of stitches on that 45-degree angle, and then you're going to rotate it again. So here's what that's going to look like. I'm going to go right up to the corner of my heart. One more. I think right about there is where I want to be. I'm going to rotate it 45 degrees, so you can see I'm not rotating it to stitch down the other part of the heart. I'm just rotating it 45 degrees. And then we're just going to do a few stitches here. Like that. Now I'll go and rotate it so that we're in line with the next curve of the heart. And just like that. And we go back to the same thing, just going around the curve nice and slow. Little adjustments as we go. Right. And we're coming up to the straight part of the heart again, so I'm just gonna go. And then right at the point of the heart, we can again do that little 45-degree trick. So 45 degrees, a few stitches, 1, 2, 3, like that. At this point, we have a little bit of applique. It is stitched down. This is where we could stop. Another little trick that I've learned though, and just another thing that can make your applique look really, really tidy, is we can actually do a second pass over this, and we're going to change the stitch width and the stitch length just slightly. So that way it's offset, and it basically fills in if there's any gaps in the first pass between the zigzag stitches. Going over a second pass with a slightly offset stitch width and stitch length is going to fill in all of those gaps. This was a pretty wide stitch width just for demonstration purposes, so I'm going to go to a slightly narrower stitch width, and we're going to go to a slightly, let's go just a teeny bit wider stitch length. Just going to do, once again, the same thing over. I might speed this part of the video up if I can, but yeah. Piggy break! So cute. Alright, so the last step is just trim off the loose threads. If you are worried about these threads coming unraveled, if you've been doing like really small, very fine detailed work, if you want to add a little dab of clear nail polish right there, that can help with that. Just make sure it's a very small amount, otherwise you'll have gunky nail polish on your sewing projects, which sucks. Yeah, that's what it looks like from the back. And then from the front, we've just got a cute little heart patch. Hitting this once more with the iron is going to help to smooth everything out. But yeah, you can see the stitches are pretty even. Turned out pretty good. I think normally I would probably use a narrower stitch width, but I went wider just for the demo. And yeah, if anybody has any questions, you can leave a comment, message me on Facebook, message me on Discord, and I will try to answer. Good luck!